Welcome to Life with Beth and Court,
where we teach you how to live authentically and build your best life,
one step at a time. Dearest Courtney Kane.
Yes, my sweet girl.
What are we mic checking with today?
Well, I thought I would do a song that I know you love, so I'm dedicating this to you through the actual artist.
Oh, okay, perfect.
I just gave myself permission to do that. You ready?
All right.
I do my hair toss, check my nails. Baby, how you feeling? Feeling good as hell.
Yes. I do love that song. I get a little obsessed with it.
Not only do you love that song, and yes, you get obsessed with it, it does tie into what we're talking about. I didn't totally just go rogue.
Okay, tell me more about that.
Well, we're talking about decluttering things out of your life, and we originally started with this topic because we have been getting rid of so much stuff, and it has felt so good. And then we started talking about how really there are different seasons to declutter people in your life.
Ooh.
In addition to things, declutter things in your work life. Like, it's just this theme that I think it's really important for us to go through and identify, kind of like you do with things. Like, do I really need this in my life? What purpose is it serving? And could I do without it?
My dear, you are getting far too into the podcast.
Oh, did it already happen? Okay.
We have to welcome them.
Why don't you welcome them and we'll start again?
Okay. Welcome back to another episode of Life with Beth and Court. I'm Beth.
I'm Court.
And today we are talking about everything Courtney just said.
I got excited.
We are talking about going through a season of declutter.
Mm-hmm.
So how to declutter your life.
Yeah.
And we identify that you can definitely do this in multiple ways. Stuff, negative thoughts, people, even career.
Mm-hmm.
You can declutter the things that are holding you back.
For sure. So should I start talking
Not
again?
yet. Let's go
so,
into it now.
So let's start with how we started this journey. So, spring cleaning came around, and I think everyone kind of goes through that where they're like, oh, I just want to get rid of stuff. Like, it feels good to clean. Well, let's add in the factor of quarantine this time. And we've been looking at this stuff and knowing this stuff has been here. And we're like, let's just get stuff out of the house. Let's condense. And you actually watched some videos about how to condense. Do you want to share the box one?
Oh, yeah, that one was interesting. Yeah. So, the added thing to quarantine as well, I think that there's a lot of stuff that we have that we think, well, when I have time, I'll use it. Mm-hmm. The reason I don't use it is because I don't have time. Well, quarantine highlighted that, no, even when you have time, you don't touch this. Like, you don't, you may like the idea. There are books that we ended up giving away that we liked the idea of reading them, but like, even when we had the time to read them, when there was no extracurriculars, there's no going anywhere, there's no other options but to do what you have at home, we still didn't read them.
Right.
And so
puzzles. Like, everyone started doing puzzles on Facebook. And one day Beth goes, do you want to do a puzzle? And I was like, hell no.
So I was like, all right, we should donate these then. So the box thing that you were talking about. So I was on YouTube, as I'm sure YouTube has seen an incredible surge during quarantine. But the one woman was saying that there's a method where you essentially pack up this seems extreme, I know, but you pack up your entire house into boxes, and then you only take out what you actually use, and everything else you sell it or give it away.
Is it like within a week or a month? There was a time.
Yeah, I can't remember. It was a month.
Yeah. So that's extreme.
Yeah,
but I think
that's really
cool.
extreme. Well, if you're moving, it makes sense.
Yeah,
because you're gonna have to pack everything anyway. So they basically were saying, like, it proves to you what you don't need to take with you, because you obviously only the stuff that you took back out is the stuff that you actually use within a month's time span.
So after we learned about that method, we didn't go to that extreme, but we really took inventory of what was in the house, and we had conversations about it. Like, how often do we really utilize these things? How much crap do we have in our basement that sits there for when we think we'll have time? Like, I have 2 basketballs down there. I think I have rollerblades, 2 saxophones. What do you have down there that you were like, I never use this? Your skateboard. Helmet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you guys are in the market.
Well, and I also, I think for me, a lot of what I have down there is more the sentimental stuff, but it's not necessarily even sentimental. Like I was just reflecting on some of the stuff that I took pictures of. So my method of getting rid of stuff that I don't need to keep carrying around with me is I took pictures of colored stuff, and then I also scanned with Adobe Scan, the iPhone app, so that I could save the content, but then I could actually physically throw away the different stuff. And one of the things I was taking pictures of or scanning was yearbooks. And it was crazy. Like, I mean, when I was going through all of it, I kept bringing them into you, and I'm like, oh my gosh, look at so-and-so, how young they look. And you're like, I don't know who they are, so that doesn't mean anything to me. But
I'm excited for you.
Yeah, but so like it provides like that momentary, like, oh my gosh, I forgot
Nostalgia.
at one point. Yeah, we were all young.
Right.
But I realized, though, that the reason I had been carrying those yearbooks around wasn't so that I could look back and see my classmates as, fifth graders. It was because of the comments, when people write in your yearbooks. I kept my yearbook from high school, and it was really so that I could go back and see all the nice things that people said to me and like the affection they showed. I remember when I was reading my comments out loud, you were like, we never talked to each other like this in high school. And I was like, honestly, we didn't either. Like, I barely knew half these people who said these things to me. And yet I was carrying that yearbook for some sort of validation to be like, see, everyone loved me in high school.
Isn't that crazy?
It's
how
so
we do
weird.
that?
I barely spoke to these people.
You had like
first of
notes
all.
from your teachers too.
Yeah,
that
those
wrote
ones mean
nice
more
things.
to me because I do know that like you taught me all year long, or one of my teachers.
It's sentimental.
Yeah, like she taught me for I don't know 2 or 3 years, and so those meant a lot to me. But I was just thinking about like the comments from my senior classmates. Right, I never hung out with most of them, and then they're like, hey, sexy, gonna miss you. Keep in touch. Here's my email address.
It was alarming the amount of people who said, hey, sexy. I was like,
know.
were they in like a sexy cult?
Like,
what is
did
this?
you have a lot of sex? And I was like, no. I really don't know why everyone said, or like, hey, babe, or like there was all these terms, and I was like, I'm so confused why you would write that in my yearbook. We never even talked. So it was just interesting because the words that they wrote did not match the actual relationship we had. And then I freaking held on to them.
For validation.
Yeah, for validation, to be like, oh, they did like me. Who cares?
Right.
So it was just interesting.
Well, and that's the interesting thing. So there's a lot of stuff that we keep because we'll have time. I'm doing air quotes one day. So we had that collection in the basement, but there also was some sentimental things. And for me, it was so I had a box of jewelry that my mom had bought for me, which was really important to me because we didn't have a lot of money growing up. So the fact that she would spend that little bit of extra money, and God, I had a hard time letting that go. Like we had that conversation at the apartment. Remember that? Where you were like, well, are you ever going to wear it again? And I'm like, no. And you're like, well, then why is it in the apartment? I'm like, because my mom bought it for me, Beth Ann. Back off. Take a step. And then this time
like
around,
unexpected fights because you're like, oh Jesus,
well,
it's just jewelry. I didn't understand.
But that's what happens when you don't work through why you're holding on to something or why something has value to you. You get defensive because you can't. It goes right back to values. Like when we've talked about this, people ask you what you believe, but you don't know why and you can't defend it. So eventually you're like, it's just what I believe. Okay, like back off. And so I had a box of jewelry and then the box of childhood toys.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Which we talked about that in our very first
I was just
podcast.
thinking that.
Molly the creepy apple. Yes.
Ugh.
So Molly
gross.
the creepy apple that I wasn't ready to let go of however long ago that was. We should see what that first air date was where I said like I'm not getting rid of my childhood toys. This time I was like, okay, like take a picture and then we'll throw them away. And you were like, what? And can we just talk about how she perfectly scanned all of her pages and papers, yet when she got to my box of toys, she goes, I hope that scanned. I hope that scan went through because I just threw them away and I'm not sure it did. And I'm like, fantastic.
That is not true. I asked you, do you want me to take them out and take a picture of each one? You're like, no, just take a general picture of the box. And so I did. And I was like, are you sure you don't want me to take more? I was trying to be careful around that creepy ass box of toys that I hated even bringing it up again because it was like
Yeah.
walking up the stairs. It was like ding dong 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 ding.
Yeah, we should have recorded it. So box of toys for me. I'm trying to think of what else. I think there's still the angel somewhere, or did we get rid
No,
of that?
that's downstairs. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's this giant cement angel.
It's pretty heavy.
It's heavy and creepy in a beautiful way, but that was like the symbol at our home. Like that was my mom's symbol, and I'm carrying it around like she's dead. And it's super. She's not dead. She's in Florida. She's okay. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, it's obviously not something I would put in my own backyard, but it's sitting in our basement.
Yeah.
It was in the garage at the apartment. And it's just one of those things where like I had to work through like, what does this mean to me and why is it so symbolic? And then I had to say, and I'm okay having a picture of that memory. Mm-hmm. So really we've been having deep conversation, deep reflection, and we finally got to the point, and if you don't agree with this, it's okay. It's just how we feel, where we're like, things are just things.
Yeah.
Like
totally.
some are definitely more sentimental than others, and you take pictures of those. Like that's our system, is we keep a digital photo album almost so we can go back and reminisce. But like for us, it goes so much bigger. Like a car is a car, a house is a house. Like they're just things. We're very grateful to have them, but we are similar in that way that we don't really attach ourselves to things unless they're an angel or a creepy apple, but whatever.
Yeah, well, and it is interesting. So we did this, I don't know, it was probably a couple weeks ago now. When it started warming up, we basically started selling stuff, and we started in the basement because obviously that's not where we use things from. We do have off-season stuff there and whatever, but so we started selling things from the basement, and I'm looking at our bookshelf right now. We didn't really sell those. We gave those ones away.
We gave some books away. We donated. We sold the TV. We have this system down to a science. We call it the Facebook Marketplace Porch Swap. So they drop things off, and I will not tell you where they leave the money in case you get a little grabby and want to come get it. But there's a secret spot where we're like, put the cash here. We'll put it out here.
Yeah, you start feeling a little bit like a drug dealer.
Yeah, it's fun though, because like we have boundaries that we don't do meets because we've been burned too many times. Like, can you meet here at this time? And then they blow us off. So we're like, pick up only, put the cash here, don't ask any questions, buy it and go. And I have had the best sales.
Yeah, no, it's been great. Well, what I was gonna say is we just by starting to sell things that we never use.
Yeah,
we have made $650 thereabouts, and we paid for our backsplash out of that,
which is $94.94.
97.
Dang it.
$97.94. But so we paid for our backsplash out of that money.
That
and
felt so freaking
Yeah.
good. Like if you can sell the stuff that you don't need, or you look at it and if you don't use it for a month and you just start to make piles of that, or you even start by going through your basement, if you can detach from the sentimental value or just needing to save it for a later time, like I was so proud that we walked out of Home Depot and I was like, we didn't pay for these. And Beth's like, don't say that.
No,
and I'm
we
like,
did pay for these.
We
guys.
did, but
Everyone,
we didn't.
We have a receipt.
Yeah, like from stuff that was just sitting.
Yeah.
Like that felt good to not come out of our pocket directly.
Totally. Well, and I think a lot of times that we think to ourselves, you know, I think what stops people from getting started on this is, well, I'm not going to make enough from old used books or like my old yearbooks
you can.
to, you know, do anything with that money. I'll make, you know, $5. Not true, first of all. Secondly, there's a lot of stuff that actually has a lot of value to other people. And I'm not saying your yearbooks. I did just scan and throw those away.
That was weird. I was like, did you do a porch swap I didn't know about?
No, I'm just saying that, like, I think in our heads, we're like, well, the stuff that I don't use, no one would want. But that's not true, because I think about the things that we sold. We sold an air conditioner. We sold a TV, our sound bar. We sold, I sold tools. Like I had a set of Ryobi impact drill and just a normal drill. And then I also had a set of Milwaukee of the same tool. And so I was like, I don't need 4 drills. I'll
we
sell
do
two
that
of
as
them,
humans.
2 of
We
them.
like to collect things
Yeah.
in sets.
And,
Like,
and we say like, just in case. Well, what if I'm using this impact driver and you need an impact driver to do something else at the same time? When is that ever going to, it's not going to happen.
well, and I think that's a really good way to challenge yourself. Like, what would we do in that situation? Okay, I would work on this
Yeah,
instead.
right?
Like,
Like-
it's not we're not squirrels. We don't need to
Yeah.
hoard impact drills. You know what I mean? Like,
Hoard impact drills. Yeah. So I sold a set of drills. I sold a router with all the bits because the truth is I just don't know how to use it. Like I used it probably 4 times and it's a good idea if I knew how to use it. I just don't have an interest. Like the projects that I do don't really require routers and I'm not going to hold on to $100 tool just because maybe someday I'll learn how to use it. And so I think about all these things that like, so we paid for, you know, part of what felt amazing is we paid for that backsplash and we haven't lost anything, right? Like, cause I wasn't using the router before, still not using the router. It's not like I'm like, oh man, the backsplash is great, but I really do miss that router. Like you don't miss the stuff because you never used it. And once it's gone, it's like, oh,
you think it's still in the basement.
yeah,
You're
like it
whatever.
very well could be in the garage still. It's
Yeah.
not. And if I ever come upon a project where I need a router, honestly, I'll probably just go to Facebook and be like, hey, does anyone have a router I can borrow for an afternoon? Like
Yeah.
I'm not going to repurchase something that now I know my patterns I'm not going to use as frequently as the cost would warrant. So it's just interesting because I think that when we look at our stuff and what we at first glance are willing to give away or willing to sell, we think it's not a lot or it's not worth a lot. But what you and I found is once you have a small win of selling something that was kind of a big, we sold our TV, which is, I don't know, God, I've had it since college, so it's not new by any means. And we sold, I don't know, for $50 or something.
75.
75 because you're amazing at it.
I am. Can we just pause and talk about how I'm like the marketplace master?
Yeah, you're pretty good at the negotiation and
Yeah.
the price points and stuff. So when we sold that though, all of a sudden you got this like hit of dopamine / adrenaline, and you're like, that was fun. Like, what else can we sell? And then I was like, ooh, sell this crock pot. Like, do that one. And then,
you got your feet wet because you stayed away from it because you're like, I don't know how you're this good at it. And people actually do what you say. And I'm like, you can do it too. And then you made your first sale and we were like, okay. And I think it's important to note, like, we had to get to a space where we could feel this way. Like
Yeah,
the necklaces took me probably 2 years. So if you're not in the spot yet, that's okay. Step 1 is, do we use these things? Like, how often do we actually use them? And then do we need them? And then step 2 would be, what attachment is holding me back from getting rid of it?
Right.
Like, is this sentimental? Is it a time thing? Like, I think I'll have time later.
doomsday planning?
Is this doomsday planning?
Yep.
So that's kind of step 2 is like, what attachment is holding me back from getting rid of this? And then step 3, if you're still having a hard time, is starting small. Like, okay, this
Yeah,
is the
totally.
box of things I've worked through. Step 1, step 2, step 3, here I am. And now I feel comfortable selling these. And that's okay. Like,
Yeah.
it's totally okay. But I just think it's important to acknowledge, like, people might feel differently about stuff and it
Yeah.
might take some people longer to work through it.
Yeah, and you do have to acknowledge that, for some people there's a safety and a comfort in the stuff that they have. And so, like Court said, we're not by any means just saying like go through your house and throw everything away.
But it does feel good if you want to.
Yeah, but I was just going to say, like, thinking about how it feels knowing that I actually feel just like lighter and lighter.
Yeah.
And when I talk to people about it, you and I don't actually have that much stuff to begin with.
No.
Like, truthfully, our cupboards, our kitchen cupboards, we have about, how many would you say, like 16?
I don't know. Oh, but let's talk about that, because one of the other things we realized when we were selling things and giving things away, I was like, we literally have just bought stuff to fill the house because the house is big. So when we moved from the apartment to the house, no one wants your house to look empty. And I know a friend who, same thing, their living room, they moved into a house and she's like, there's this huge gap. Like, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, well, move something you have over there. And they ended up buying a huge couch to make it fit. And so I had this moment of realization, like, oh my God, we have so much crap because we have so much space. And as humans, we're like, well, we can't have an empty space. We need to fill it because it looks weird. And so that was a really interesting, it was interesting. Realization. Yeah. I had the but I couldn't get past that. That was my realization, that I was like, we keep compounding things because we need to fill the space.
Well, what we realized in our kitchen is that most of the cabinets and cupboards were filled with, I don't even know what you'd call it, like tools. You know, like
appliances.
Yeah. Well, they're not all appliances though. Like
is that where you hid the impact drill? You didn't actually sell it. It's in the cupboard.
No, but like cherry pitters.
Oh my God.
Let's be
cherry
real.
Pitter.
You and I eat cherries and spit the pits out. Like, we do not use a cherry pitter.
I used it once when we went and picked cherries at Claudio and Taylor's home.
There were so many cherries that they went bad because we couldn't eat that many at once. So I was like, we don't need a friggin' cherry pitter. Or we have 3 food processors. We've got the Ninja, the Bullet, and then a hand one. I was like, we don't need this. The crock pot, right? Like, I like that crock pot because you could turn it on and off from your phone. It was connected over Wi-Fi. But like, we have the spaceship
Is anyone surprised by that?
And
that Beth Ann had a Wi-Fi crock pot.
So like, the spaceship can take care of that. So we don't need the spaceship and the crock pot. So we just realized that, you know, all of these things. So we brought them out of the cupboards, and our cupboards are pretty empty now.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have, like, we eat a lot of fresh produce. So there's not a lot of, you know, we have spices that are in the cupboard. Spices and tea is a lot of what
we donated. A lot of like pots and pans, cookie trays. We donated them to a local childcare center because they were building a natural playground. And we were like, we don't need all of this. Like, we have so much stuff. So we thought we would have like a small little box to give them, but I think we ended up giving them
3 boxes,
2 or 3 boxes, and then like a giant stack of Solo cups from Costco.
That was from a party.
And I was like, just to be clear, this is not for the children to play beer pong. But if you guys want to do that early,
I mean, we won't object.
Yeah. So the point is, we just went through this phase where we went through that process. We were like, step 1, do we really use this? Okay, do we really need it if we're not really using it? If not, what's our attachment to it, and how can we move around that? And then how can we make dollar bills?
Dollar bills,
we did. And so it's been really good for us. And I don't know about you, but when I'm moving in the right direction, I can feel it.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
You kind of touched on it earlier. Like, you feel lighter, you feel good, like you feel happy. And so for us, the majority of decluttering has been with physical things, but this is a really good time to touch base on other things that you can declutter very briefly. We won't go in deep, but this is a season where you can declutter people from your life that aren't really healthy for you. We've talked about toxic friendships, toxic relationships, and you wrote a blog post about this, didn't you?
I did. It was called Seasons of Friendship.
Yeah, we should resurface that. So really talking about, and it's interesting because I've had this conversation with a couple of friends just the past couple of weeks where they're like, I have grown apart from this person, or I've tried to make amends with this person, or I've done this and it's just not fitting anymore. And I said, the fact that you're identifying that it's not fitting is probably a good indicator it's time to let that friendship go. And I've gotten better at that throughout the years. I used to really struggle with that, and I would hold on because I was taught, like, you make things work, you work it out in relationships and friendships. But that was tying me down, and that toxicity was holding me back. And so really it's a time to say, it's kind of like the same process, like identify who are my friends. Yeah. I'm saying air quotes because some of them won't be by the end. Sorry, spoiler alert. But who are my friends? Do I need them? Yeah. And if I need them, in what way? And why do I want them there? Like, why are they my friend? And then if there's no reason that makes sense and it's not a good fit anymore, and you end up saying, wow, this person is actually really causing some trouble in my life, what do I need to do to let go of the attachment? How do I move around it? And then how do I let go? And I think people get so freaked out about this because they're like, well, you can't just break up with your friend or you can't just let them go. You can.
Yeah.
There are so many people in this world and life is too short not to live it healthy and full and to your most passionate, fullest potential. And if there are people in your life that are holding you back from that, certainly you can try to work through it, but you'll know. Like, I'm not talking about the like, oh, so-and-so and I got in a fight. Like, I'm talking about, this person doesn't fit where I'm at anymore, and I'm holding on to them just out of guilt or fear.
Well, and you feel too, like I think about the friends we have in our lives right now.
Oh my gosh. I feel like I was just talking to one of our dear friends about that this morning. We were texting and we were talking about some of the transition of like people we've had to let go, and like, she's been trying to make amends with some people. And I said, you know what? At the end of the day, you tried your best and you learned from what happened. And that's all you can do. That's all you can bring to the situation. And I said, I think about where Beth Ann and I are now, and she's one of our dear friends. And our friend circle is like the best it's ever been. It's the healthiest. It's the
totally
happiest.
different than when we first met, though.
Totally different than when we first met. And we've gone through seasons of friendship. And it's fun to look back like, oh, remember that one time we did this and remember that. And that's great. But it was a moment in time. And I totally agree, which is funny because we haven't talked about this, like you and I, but I do feel like this is the best friend circle we've ever had. And the reason we got there was because we kept letting go of the other ones when we needed to. And it's not always a dramatic thing. Like sometimes it is, and that's not fun. But sometimes you and the other friendship, you feel it. Like you just feel like we're moving this way and you're going this way. And that's cool. Like I'll still say hi to you. I'll still text you if you text me, but like we're not in this deep friendship zone anymore, and that's okay.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say is that like you can still be cordial and you can still be friendly. You can still, be just as kind as you would to any other human, but it's just that you're not carving out time and energy and emotion for this person anymore, and that's okay. Like you said, you can still be grateful for the great times you did have, and you can still, admire what you had with them before, but just know that it's different now because people do change, and for better and for worse. Like sometimes you grow, not even for worse, it's just that you grow in opposite
for
directions.
different.
Yeah, for different.
Well, and I will say not everyone will handle it in the same way. Like not everyone will take it well, but you have to know at the end of the day, like I have to do this because this is what's best for me. And as people, we have a hard time doing what's best for us. We feel guilty. We feel shame.
We feel selfish.
We feel selfish. Those are the three biggest things we feel. But here's the thing. If something happened to you tomorrow, this is super cliche, but just think about it for a second. If something happened to you tomorrow and your life was done on this earth, would you feel good about where you were at 24 hours before? Your people in your life, the things in your life, where you were living, what you were doing, your job, like what does that look like for you? And I think, I don't say that as a scare tactic, but I don't think we pause enough to really sink into that and reflect, because we always are like, well, tomorrow's a new day. Like go through it and do it all again. Well, what if today was the last day? Like, I'm so happy with my life. I would feel so okay with my time ending.
Which doesn't mean that we're not striving for things still, right? Like you can still strive for things and reach and want these goals and, pursue these different things. And at the same time say like, I'm so pleased with the work I've done and the people that are in my life, and I'm content. It's just, you can be content and also striving for more at the same time.
Absolutely.
And I think that this, kind of came up for us probably a month and I think it was about a month ago when there was a parade in our neighborhood for a neighbor of ours who was 28. And, he was about to pass away from cancer, and he had a 2-year-old little girl and a young wife, and the community came together during quarantine and they said, we want to show this family love, but we need to be socially distant. So I don't know, what would you say, 150 cars showed up to our neighborhood?
I'm not sure because we were driving in a circle, but there were a lot of us.
That's true. But so like about 150 to 200 cars, no joke, showed up. The news showed up. Everyone's car was decked out with, people had painted the windows. They had signs. They had, there's kids with like tambourines sticking out the sunroof. There were trucks that put big speakers in their in the bed of their truck, and they were playing music. They had streamers. Like the cars were absolutely decked out, and we drove by this house to just show. And he was at that point, he was in hospice, so it was his family that was out in the driveway, and they had chalked a thank you message. Thank you for your support. And as we drove by, like, they're just waterworks. They were just crying to see all of the support, and it was a really tough time for them. And you and I, it's hard when it's someone your age, younger. It would, to know that his life is over now. That hit both of us pretty hard. And his little girl used to wait. She waves to us when we walk. And
oh my gosh, she looks out the window like a puppy.
She gets so excited when she sees us, and she waves until we literally walk away.
I blow her kisses, and she'll blow kisses back.
And you can tell, like, her mom is always like, what is happening right now? And,
who are you blowing kisses to?
Her mom comes to the window and we wave to her too. So anyway, all that to say is that experience kind of had a profound impact on us when we, not only in quarantine, when we've, people are losing their loved ones in that respect, and then also being quarantined from their loved ones, like the frontline workers, when they have to, be quarantined in their garage or their basement and can't see their family because of the exposure and all of that. It really makes you take a look and say, like, what is in my life and is it important? And so that's kind of when this whole thing started for us, where we really took an inventory and said, like, if this were my family, what would I be leaving them with? Like, what would my legacy be? Who are my friends right now? All of those questions that you asked, for me anyway, that's kind of where all of this spurred from.
Yeah, definitely. So I think we're good on time, and I'm thinking we should do a part 2 maybe, and talk about professional, the workplace, and then talk about, like, maybe we transition from decluttering to detoxing, and then detoxing in the workspace, like toxic things there, and then toxic with like
your health
products.
Yeah.
Yeah. So should we separate them, or should this be part 1?
We could call it a part 2.
Yeah. I think people like
Part
the part
two.
1, part 2. Okay. So now that we've talked that out on the air, when we could have just paused it.
We clearly need to plan more off air.
So this has been part 1 of decluttering, where we talked about friendships and relationships, how you need to declutter that sometimes, and then decluttering physical items in your home. And so next time we'll talk about the workplace, and we'll talk about like physical products in your health.
Yes. Perfect. So we hope that this episode has helped you maybe shed a light on what you have in your house, the different items that you hold on to and carry with you, and also kind of gets you started thinking on the path of who is in your life.
What things you can let go of.
Things you can let go of, and people, if necessary, if they're negative influence in your life. So we'll come back next week with part 2, where we will talk about toxic work environments and toxic products that we might have in our lives. Till then, keep building your best life.
Bye, guys.